It's Hannah.
And Trevor.
And it's Disney Pinsomniac. And today we have a little bit of a unique video, something we haven't done before on the channel. We're gonna go through some of our experience that we had in Japan. This is actually something that was requested by all of you, so if you hate it, make sure to leave the feedback down below so that at least we know what not to do again, okay?
So as many of you know, we went on a trip recently to Japan. And we went to DisneySea. We went to see Fantasy Springs. But that's not all we did.
And make sure to check out all of our videos down below, linked, where you can see all of our feedback thus far about the food we ate in Fantasy Springs. We're also coming out with a whole video about our entire experience at DisneySea. So make sure to keep an eye out for that as well.
Yes, stay tuned for that. That's not out yet. But that's not all we did on our trip. We also went around to other places around, close and not so close.
So we wanted to give you a little bit of a lowdown on one of our days that we spent. This was about an hour and a half, maybe two hours away from Tokyo, in a small town called Aizu-Wakamatsu. How was my pronunciation, Trevor?
Very good. Very good.
Now, this is a small town in the mountainous region of Tohoku of Japan. So if you've ever seen an anime where it's a little slice of life-esque and there's like rice fields and mountains, it looks like a lot of Tohoku. And that's where we decided that we were going to spend a little bit of time, mainly because Trevor used to live in this area, just for a short period of time, for a few months, but we wanted to come back and experience it together as a couple. So we wanted to walk you through a little bit about what we did and why maybe you might be interested in going to someplace like Aizu-Wakamatsu, which often is called Aizu for short, which I will be using because Aizu-Wakamatsu is a long name.
That is very true. It is long. And I lived here previously about maybe 6 years back or so, and I didn't really get to do very much there because I was working and busy all the time, and so I missed out on a lot of like the more fun, sort of interesting attractions and things, touristy things around this little town. And so it was fun to come back and be with Hannah and visit some of the spots.
So, you might be wondering, why would anyone ever go to this place? It's not going to be on any, like, must-see in Japan lists, unfortunately. Though we would make the case that there's actually a lot to offer in a lot of areas in Japan that people do not to go and see, that are a little off the beaten path. And Aizu is a really good example of that. It's famous for its samurai history. It is known as the last samurai stronghold city, and it's unique for that feature, for a castle that it has, and for its folk craft, which includes their papier-mâché cows. But this is a unique one, and you'll see why. So first of all, basics, we took the Shinkansen up until, what city was it that we...
To Koriyama, which is a city in Fukushima Prefecture, and Aizu's in Fukushima as well.
And then we took a transfer from that to a local train where we then got off in Aizu-Wakamatsu, and we were greeted immediately with the motto... No, not the motto, but the mascot of the town, which is a red cow. I'm going to show some pictures, some videos, but this red cow is everywhere. Love it. Okay? Then we decided that we were going to go and visit
Mount Imori. Mount Imori is the place, and it's kind of this old temple shrine, and it kind of has like a I guess like an old shrine or like an old sort of cemetery, I guess, is kind of what it is, on a mountain.
And this exists because, unfortunately, a group of young boys all killed themselves during the time that they saw what they thought was the castle burning. And so they decided that they would kill themselves as a form of honorable death as samurai. And ultimately, the unfortunate thing was that the castle wasn't burning. So there is a monument to these samurai,
yes.
And there's also a shrine there, and then a really cool temple that you actually go all the way up in a spiral and then down the other side in a spiral as well.
Yeah, it's like super old, this thing.
It's from the 1700s,
yes.
So really cool experience to get to go there. Obviously it's a sad story, but there's two cool things there. First of all, you get to go and see a wonderful view. After we decided to see that area, it's a small hike. You can pay a small fee to walk up a moving carpet, like at the airport, that goes up the hill in case you need help. There's lots of little trinket stores. My favorite trinket store was the one that was at the top of the mountain. I thought it had the best souvenirs out of actually anywhere that we went. After that, we decided to go back down and experience a very famous delicacy in the area.
We went to a mochi restaurant, I guess. Mochi, and I guess it had was it yakitori? It was like tofu and mochi.
And fish on a stick.
So it was like kind of like a yakitori, kind of, but which is like meat on a stick.
I was gonna say, and if you don't know what that is.
Yes. But it was like a little bit different. I'd never had anything exactly like that, but it was really, really good. And
it was a really unique experience. It's actually like a very like well-known, I would say, like for people in Japan, it's a well-known restaurant. It feels like you're walking into like a grandma's house. There's all the tatami rugs, flooring, and you sit on the tatami rugs, and then they cook the mochi and all of the food over an open fire, which is really cool. And I have to say, I am not a huge mochi fan. I like it. I've definitely come to like it a lot more as I've eaten it more, and I've like kind of gotten a taste for like better or worse mochi. This was one of the best mochis like I've ever had. It was so good. The texture was amazing, and I could feel that like the love of this old couple that was there pounding it and then, you know, roasting it on a stick. I could feel the love. It was a very cool experience. They gave us endless barley tea, and they made sure that we got to try all of this amazing mochi. It was really yummy.
They were very nice, and it was a very, very good experience.
Then we took the bus from there to the castle, and the castle was one of the highlights of the trip for me, overall.
I should say, too, just as a side note, we kind of used the one bus to get around most everywhere. Japan has really good public transportation options, lots of trains, but in a lot of these smaller towns, the train really just gets you there, and then as far as getting around, it's pretty much just buses
or biking.
If you don't have a car or if you have a bike. And so this particular bus that we took was actually a loop, like for tourists or for people visiting, because it was a loop around the town that took you to various tourist destinations in the city, in the town. So.
The bus was not cheap. I'm just going to be honest with you, and it charged you every time, and it was like not based on how far you go, which most buses in Japan and most trains in Japan are based off of how far you go. This one was not based on that because it was a tourist bus, so they just kind of charged you the same amount every time that you got on the bus.
You can get a pass.
Which we would have done if we had...
we probably would have benefited from paying for the pass.
Well, we got to the castle, and it was super cool. So there's this beautiful wall outside it that is the original wall, and that's actually the original moat around it as well. So they have the original moat and the original wall, and then the rest of the castle is actually reconstructed from pictures, but it's still pretty old because they reconstructed it in the 70s, right?
Yeah, more recently, but it's pretty.
It's not like from last year or something.
No, and it's pretty faithful to the original, from what I understand.
Yeah, they took pictures and renderings, and then also the historic knowledge from the people in the town, because it's actually kind of crazy. One of the things that we realized that this castle existed well into way later than you would think. So actually, one of the samurai who tried to kill himself, he survived.
He died during World War I, was it?
No, during World War II.
Yeah, he died during World War II, which that kind of gives you some perspective as far as how recent that was, really.
Yes.
Really, you know.
And so he actually ended up working for the Japanese government, I think, at some point. Just really crazy. He worked, I think I was reading, and we can cut this if I'm wrong, but like with telegrams, which is crazy to think about the technology from going to being a young samurai boy to then working during World War II, right? Really different experience. You'd seen a lot of the history of Japan. And that transition period between when there was a feudalist society and it was clan-based to then becoming a unified Japan. So we actually learned a lot about what that historic period was like, and then also a lot of things about the samurai crest. The entire castle is actually a museum, which I would really, if you are like a samurai buff, this is like a really cool spot. They actually did like a whole, every floor was a different subject. So we got to see swords in one area. We got to see the family crest and like who had control of the land at different areas. We got to see the famous leaders of the nearby towns as well. And then we also got to see information about the building of the castle and how the castle existed. And then at the very, very top of the castle, you got to see an outlook for the entire rest of the area, which we could actually see all the way to where we had started the day at that other temple, shrine, and cemetery where those young men had thought that they had seen the castle burning.
Yeah, and it was really, seeing the inside of the castle was probably one of the highlights. I had never been in there, and I'm pretty sure it was new. I think that it was recently remodeled. And the amount of history and different items they had on display was really, really cool to see and learn all that history. So I'm really glad that we went inside. It did cost some money to get inside, but it wasn't expensive, I don't think, really.
Now, it is important to note that a lot of the tourist attractions in these areas close kind of early. Now, they're not going to close at like 2 p.m., but you're not going to be able to go see them after dinner. They close like before dinner so that everyone who lives in the town can go back home. So if you are planning to do this, we were a little bit rushed because we arrived that day and then decided we were going to do all of the tourist attractions in one day. I don't know if you could spend more than 2 days in this area to do all of the tourist attractions, but if you are going to see everything in the town, if you decide to stop like we did outside of the loop and do something like a lunch, you're gonna feel a little bit rushed, I think. What was really cool, we also got to see a little bit of a tea garden. We did not buy the tea because it was actually the end of the day and we are not really big tea drinkers anyways. But they do a tea ceremony in the garden across from the castle as well, which is really cool. Another highlight for me was seeing all the kids on their school trips there. There were so many kids on school trips and they all had samurai swords that they had bought, or they had big plush versions of the cow that they had as well. And then we took the bus back to the station, and then after we saw everything, it was beautiful. We walked a little bit, walked through the town. It felt like you had stepped back in time a little bit to a time period where there was lots of kids running around and biking. There were school children around. There were adults going to work. It was like somehow very alive, yet very small town. Small towns in America can feel really depressing when you are there because there's usually just like one main street and then like a bar, maybe a strip club, and a grocery store. This felt a lot more like a true functioning like town, which was really nice. Once we got back to the station, we transferred to a bus that brought us to a very tiny village outside of Aizu.
Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to have that experience because we were really able to see like what the super tiny, I mean very, very small village is like. And we stayed at a
rokon?
Yeah, so like a traditional Japanese resort and bathhouse. Really, really tiny, super tiny village. That did feel pretty dead.
Yeah, and it was obvious that it used to be a much more vibrant resort town.
Yeah.
And that it is not anymore. And that was a little bit depressing. But we were not the only people there in the town. No. And the hotel we were at, there definitely were other people there.
And there were tourists, like either from Europe or America there. Which I was a little bit surprised.
We were a little bit surprised that I was not the only blonde lady in the hotel.
And you were not. The fact that you were not was a little bit surprising. Mostly Japanese people.
One of the things we did is we were going to eat at a soba restaurant that was in the area, but then turns out it was only open on weekends, and we didn't plan well enough because the town is so small that it really is only going to have like things like a restaurant open like twice a week when it's a little bit more busy in the small. There is no gas station, there's nothing there. The only thing that was there was a 7-Eleven. So we walked over a bridge where you could see like the falls and the river and everything there. It was so beautiful. So beautiful. And we walked over to 7-Eleven and we just went ham. We bought so much food.
We love 7-Eleven in Japan. It's great.
It's unlike anything in America. It's truly special. Now our room, we decided that we were gonna have the traditional Japanese experience here in Aizu. We were like, this is our old-timey day. We're gonna spend it with the samurai, and then we're gonna go to a traditional bathhouse. So we might as well do it in the most very traditional way. And so we booked a Japanese-style room. And it is really cool to note that our hotel did have on the wall a certification from the Japanese government that this is an official, like, traditional hotel. I do think that there's a lot of places that you can spend a lot of money to get scammed into being told that you're getting a traditional, authentic Japanese experience, and that, like, it's not really a scam, but it's not... it might be like a watered down version of it. And so it was really cool to be able to know that, like, the government was like, nope, this is legit. This is what an actual Japanese hotel is like, a traditional experience. And when we were walking in the hotel, we even saw a woman in full kimono doing a tea ceremony. And then that was just on our way to our room. Like, not just for us, but for anyone in the hotel. And then when we got to our hotel room, it was all the tatami mats on the floor, which I love tatami mats. I actually would like to, if we ever like get to dream and make a big, if we ever get to build a dream house, I would love to have tatami mats on them because I just love them. We had futons that were already made up for us on the ground, so we did not sleep in beds on that day. We slept on futons, which personally I think are much more comfortable than actual American style or European style bedding in Japan, because those tend to be really firm and hard, and I'm not really into that. But the futon is just a giant cloud on the ground, and the tatami mats make it really soft. So I actually had a better time sleeping on the futons on the floor than I did in other places at nicer, fancier American style hotels.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. That's a similar experience.
And so then after you walked through the room, then we got to our special little seating area and looking out over our personal bath. So we did have an open air bath, which was all hot spring water. And let me tell you, that water was hot.
Yeah.
Like, very hot. We had actually a lot of trouble figuring out how to use it.
Yeah, and that was we had a moment where we couldn't figure out it really just had bath controls, like hot and cold water, but it took us an embarrassing amount of time to actually figure out how to work it. And so for a while we were like resorting to other methods to try to cool this thing down because it was
like
hot.
Almost boiling
it was like
water.
Pretty much boiling water. So,
like, I couldn't in good conscience put any part of my body into it.
It was so hot. So once we figured it out, it was very nice.
It was lovely. We were sitting there, and especially, like, as a reminder, we live in New York City, so we're not out in, like, we go to parks and we're we're actually outside probably more than we ever have been in other places because you have to walk everywhere in the city. But, like, in terms of being, like, in, like, uninterrupted nature, it's been a minute, right? And so being out there in our nice warm bath in the nude, because you have to do the onsen in the nude, we're in the onsen, the stars, the bugs you can hear, the crickets, you can hear the water from the river below, and it's just the two of us. I mean, like, can you get any better than that? Like, is there a better experience? I don't know. I definitely think that it was worth it for us to splurge for the little bit nicer room so that we had the private onsen. We actually did not go to the public onsen that was at this hotel. We did go to public onsen in Sendai, which was actually probably my favorite experience, one of my very favorite experiences of the whole trip. But I am glad that we splurged to have the little private onsen in our fancy Japanese style hotel experience.
Maybe later we could also talk about the hotel we stayed out in Sendai and kind of do a review of that, because those, I think, are in all over Japan, I think.
Yeah, and it was an amazing experience. Amazing. So if you guys want to hear about our really exciting experience we had in Sendai, that was definitely one of the top 5 luxury experiences I've ever had. Let us know down below if you want to hear more just reviews of some of the things that you might run into in Japan, because honestly, we have things to share, we have experiences to relive, and we'd love to give it our honest opinion. We'll be honest with you. We can't help it.
Or if you want to hear more about Tokyo,
yeah,
we have that as well.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I think another highlight for me was the bus trip back, because we watched all these little kids get picked up in their respective farming town areas, so that we'd be like on a road through the like jungle looking area, and then they'd pick up one kid at a house and then keep going on the bus, pick up another kid, and then they brought them all into school in town, which was really cool. I would say that our hotel was old. It was pretty obvious that they probably had built it as this absolute top of the line luxury hotel in the
40 years ago.
70s, right?
Yeah.
But I have to say that I recently saw a YouTuber say that all hotels, when you really look, are not going to be that nice. And I do think that that rings true, except for if you were in the first year or two of the hotel being open, right? Because you can't have that many people staying there all the time, no matter how well you clean it and how like good care you take of the hotel. There's going to be some like wear and tear, unless you're staying at a 5-star hotel. It's just the reality, right? So I didn't think it was in any worse condition than any of the other hotels that we stayed in, except for maybe the really nice one we stayed in Sendai, which we didn't realize was going to be as nice as it was when we booked it. That was like kind of a fluke. I remember we walked into Sendai and I was like, oh, this is fancy. This is like legit stuff. So I do think that for the money, it was only about like $200, I think, a night, maybe. Not even, probably. It was $206 for that entire experience. Dinner was not included. The dinner was like $75 or something like that per person, because it was like a like massive like 3 or 4 course meal, because it's a very nice hotel. But we again opted for our 7-Eleven run and instead got to stay at a very fancy hotel for only $200. And it was a truly like authentic experience. It was really, really cool. And out of all of the places that we stayed, I feel like that was the most unique experience that we could have asked for. And I know that a comparable stay in a comparable location and a comparable experience to what we did in like Kyoto would be so much more money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely would say that like if you're someone who wants to go off of the beaten path, this would be a good option, maybe just to even look into Hoku overall. It doesn't even have to be in Aizu Wakamatsu, but to look at northern Japan and see where there are some areas that not a lot of people go to, but they're going to offer some similar experiences without paying you through the nose, because they know that they're going to have a million tourists there every year. Kyoto is insanely expensive, and what we did is a true like authentic experience without having to go to Kyoto, and it was a really unique and memorable opportunity. We felt like we were experiencing things truly fully for ourselves at our own pace throughout the whole day. I do want to just share that this is an example of the cows that the area is famous for, but they're usually red and not blue. Mine is a special one that is a commemoration of the earthquakes that happened in Japan. In what year was that?
2011.
Which is why it is blue and why it has the waves on it. But traditionally, they look like a big version of this tiny little keychain where they're red bobblehead. I don't know if you can see it. It's teeny tiny. I got this at the castle. This is, and his name is
Akabeko.
Which I think is pretty cute. So this is a really cool thing, because this is actually a folk tradition that's in the area, where it was said to have cured a child from a plague, and it's only made in this area. You cannot get these cows anywhere else. It's very special. I brought my mom home one as a souvenir, and they're probably my favorite souvenir that you could get in Japan, because they're just so unique and special to the area. So let us know, what did you think of our little vlog? I know we sped through it. It was a whole day we put a footage in there for a very short video, but thank you so much for watching, and let us know if you'd like to see more about our trip from Japan. And if you are new to our channel, if you stumbled across this video because you're thinking about going to northern Japan, I highly recommend it, and we hope that you take the plunge and you go to some of those places that are off the beaten path but deserve a little bit more recognition.
Yeah, and let us know what else you guys want to hear about or see, and we will do our best.
Yeah, we're happy to talk always. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!